Good morning. Welcome to all of you. I know a lot of you are logging in. We'll be getting started just at 12:15. And it's so good to see you guys. We've got people from South Carolina, Michigan, California, New York. We are across the country today. It's great to see you all joining in. And thank you for being with us. And we're glad to have you. We'll start in just a tad. So Sheena, you sounded just fine when you were on. It's great to have you. And hi, Rebecca. It's good to see you this morning.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You all look so nice and professional, and I'm in my Saturday ball cap.
Michelle, my lower half is wrapped in a blanket because the heater's broken and it's under 70 degrees in LA today. So of course we have our sweaters and boots out.
I don't even want to hear it. It's like 50, I don't know, 50 in Colorado, but I was up early with the dog and it was 34. And I was like, welcome to fall.
It's here. Yay. Good. At least somebody gets fall. We just go straight from summer to other summer to cooler summer.
Yeah.
The planet's on fire. Run for your lives.
Well, we'll have snow and then we'll go back to 90 degrees and then we'll go back to snow again. So, it's all good. No worries whatsoever. So hi, welcome to you guys who are joining in. Please hop in the chat. Let us know where you're from, what you teach. That would be Rockstar. We'll start in about 5 minutes. And we just to stay on time, our speakers are in a bit early with us. We're all just hanging out, ready to start. But we will do that start in just a tad. So, oh, 85, Anne, really?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. Welcome to fall.
I love seeing where everyone's from.
I know, it's great. We are literally north, south, and east and west. So we've got the whole thing going.
That's great. Ooh, Hawaii is representing. It is early in the morning for Hawaii. It's
Absolutely.
That is great. Michelle, what time does Dr. Warren's close start? His closing address? Do you know?
Right after you. I think we have a break. Just give me 1 second and I'll let you know. It's right after y'all. And so Dr. Warren will be in with us at 3:10 Eastern time.
Okay.
So 3:10 Eastern time, but we do have a break from 3 o'clock to 3:05. One of those stretches, get a coffee and come back breaks.
Got it. Got it.
I always have to do the math and come backwards. So
me too.
I know you're because we're both Western.
Yeah.
Part. Now Sheena's got it easy. She just watches the clock. So you're all good.
That works. This should be a great session, but I'm going to give everybody a heads up. My two dogs, Hoyt and Roseau, are my co-pilots, and the neighbor is adding on to her garage today.
Oh goodness.
So all windows are closed, even though, like Ann mentioned a little while ago, that it's hot as heck. But the windows are closed, and we'll see how this goes.
It'll be fine. I think we've all lived in that Zoom world. I have a squeaky ball running up and down the hall right now from the puppy. So I'm fully expecting her to barge in as well. Although I get to be on mute, so it'll be good. We'll make it happen.
It'll be fun.
Exactly.
Sheena and Rebecca, really excited for the presentation. And just so you know, Sheena, we coordinated this with your neighbor's garage add-on edition. We thought it would be perfect and you could use it as a metaphor in some way for the work inequity. So
thank you so much. And I know you've met them already, so thank you, Bob.
All right, we've got about 2 minutes. Welcome to you guys who have come in these last few. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Let us know where you're from and what you teach in the chat. I hope you had a chance to have a stretch break, grab something to drink or a snack. We've got a fantastic session ahead of us, and we're thrilled to have Sheena and Rebecca with us. We'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Michelle, where are you going tomorrow? If I know you, you're probably headed off to a national parks to scale a mountain and then write a unit plan about it and then build in
thanks.
learning.
No, actually, I am, well, now you're going to laugh, inspecting a historic building in the morning. A church, but our family has an apple tree, and because of the freeze, they picked over 300 pounds of apples, and so it is applesauce weekend tomorrow. So that's
applesauce weekend. I like it.
It's good. It's a family tradition, so it'll be nice, But what about you? You've got the nice weather. Are you headed somewhere?
Well, we have a super exciting NSTOY board meeting tomorrow at 4 p.m. So I'll be there for that. But beforehand, maybe a little exercise, a little outdoor time. Nice. Yeah.
Well, and Sheena, you've got gorgeous weather up in the Northeast, and the colors have to be changing too, right?
Yes. In fact, it's gorgeous outside. After this, I'm actually going to go for a long walk with the dogs, and maybe a ride to start where the colors are changing.
Good for you. Good for you.
That's great.
Yeah. So looking right now, it's just about 12:14, and welcome. It's really nice to have you guys. I know you guys have heard that. We've had people still rolling in. We're thrilled to have all of you here in this session. Mr. Bob Williams was just with us, and it was great to have him join us as well to say hello. We're tickled to have you in today. And I'm going to start our session by saying it is a tremendous gift to have both of these teachers with us. Sheena Graham, the 2019 Connecticut Teacher of the Year, and Rebecca Mieliwocki, the 2012 National Teacher of the Year. Titles are amazing, but the people are even more wonderful. And you're going to have warm hearts and lots of learning with these two fantastic teachers and ladies today. I'm thrilled to turn it over to them so that they can tell you a bit more about their background and their wonderful session today. Thank you for joining us. And ladies, it's all you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. And good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sheena, my co-presenter. I'm Rebecca Mieliwocki, the 2012 California National Teacher of the Year, and I'm here with my friend Sheena Graham, 2019 Connecticut Teacher of the Year. And our session is on 6 simple practices you can engage in your classroom to deepen your equity mindset. And we'll start by sharing our why. I was just in Leanne Erickson's session, and I'm so glad to know there was a lot of overlap between the things she was saying are great practices for teaching of equity. And we're going to bring several of those into our session as well and talk about how to apply those directly into the classroom space. So we'll start with our why. I am out of the classroom right now acting as a TOSA, teacher on special assignment, and I work with developing the capacity of the educators in my district. And the thing that I'm obsessed with right now, literally obsessed with, is how much PD teachers actually attend, but how little makes its way into their transformed daily practice. And it's no one's fault, and there's not a blame thing happening here. But when I audit my own practice after 25 years of teaching, the amount of actual literal adjustments I made were so slim compared to the hours and weekends and weeks worth of institutes and conferences and binders that I was inhaling, that I thought there is a mismatch here. There is not anybody speaking to how hard it is to change your daily labor when you're in the room with kids. And if there's any hope at all for us to move into spaces where kids feel seen, connected with, represented, and appreciated, and we can grow their potential, we have to make this simple, doable right now by the people who are doing the work. That's why Sheena and I are here today to talk about some simple things you can do to make sure this happens. Sheena, tell us a little bit about you and your why.
Thank you, Rebecca, and it's a joy to be here with you today. I am in my 39th year as an educator in a district that is largely minority. I have always felt that there was a need for equity education, but like Rebecca, I found that a lot of the PD that we get, that I've gone through, was not making it into my practice as well. So I began to really reflect on what it was that I wanted to do, needed to accomplish, and then to take that passion and break it down into small steps, little things that I could do on a daily basis. I am passionate about making sure that every child feels included. And that is based a lot on my own educational experience. So, as we get into the workshop today, there will be little bits and pieces that you'll learn about my journey and why it's so important for me to be here today to share what I know with you. And I'm hopeful that you will walk away with 6 things that you can do that are actually things you can do starting tomorrow if you have school tomorrow.
Mhm.
All
I had
right, great to be here.
Sheena, I had to sub in classrooms yesterday because we have a sub crisis, which I'm sure is hitting almost all of you wherever you're at, is there aren't enough people to cover the spots for teachers who are out sick or quarantining or have left the profession even. So I was in a 6th grade science classroom yesterday and an 11th grade AP US history class yesterday. And I'm happy to report I still got it. But the thing that I was doing while I was there was assessing, would the things we're going to talk about today work in any classroom? And I think, and I hope the answer is yes, that no matter what subject you teach, these are simple sort of ways of going about the work of working with kids in whether it's choir, whether it's 3rd grade, whether it's math, algebra, whatever. These are things you can adopt and begin to inhabit as a way of making sure that your classroom is an equitable space for the people in it. And really that applies to anybody, even if you're an administrator or a leader in a system. These simple changes of the things you say, the ways you move in your classroom can help bring a space to bear that allows kids to feel connected and feel like they can take risks in class. So I was glad to be able to test that yesterday. What we're going to do is go super low tech. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit over screened. I'm over teched. I need this low impact sort of hands-on learning with kids and with adults. And so Sheena and I are using literal cards. We're using index cards today instead of slides as just simple sort of schema for you to hang on your learning. And we have 6 cards we're going to share with you today. And we would also love for you to, oops, I'm timing myself, stop. We would like you to put in chat whenever you have a thought or a reaction or an idea you want to share about something we're talking about, have at it. Use the chat as a back channel for having conversation amongst yourselves about the things we're talking about and the things we're saying. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And my first daily practice that all good teachers do is that they check in with kids. You check in with kids. So at the start of every day and at the end of every day, or start of period, end of period, good teachers always take at least 60 seconds to check in with kids. Give that human warm hello. How are you doing? What's going on? And check out what is happening in their lives. They will share with you. You know this, whether they're littles or bigs, they want to tell you what's going on in their lives. And I want you to hang on to that information and use what they tell you as a springboard into the lesson or for future planning of an activity or a project. Because if they're all talking about it, chances are this is a high level emotional interest piece for kids or something they want to learn more about or work on, whether it's something happening on campus or in their lives or communities. This is good info to harvest. Another thing I want you to do when you're checking in with kids is to over communicate the fact that you run a just, safe, and equitable classroom. So whether it's when you first meet kids at the start of the year and every day after that, I want you to remind yourself and the kids that your room is a safe space where you will tackle hard topics and the challenging realities of our lives, and you are an ally in that space with them. How are you going to communicate that? You're, of course, going to verbalize that. you will say to students, I care a ton about you. I care a ton about your success. I care a ton about what we have to learn here today. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure we have incredible outcomes, whatever they may be. I am here to guarantee that that happens. The second way you do that is you put whatever posters or visuals all around your room to remind you that that is the person you are. And so the kids get those reminders that that's the person you are. The third way you over communicate that you run a just and equitable safe classroom is whenever there's a violation of safety, of trust, of equity, you stop and address it. And this is the biggest one of all. In the busyness of our lives and of teaching and of the swash of humanity on a campus, and I've taught middle and high school, never elementary, but I know it's the same. It's very easy for these small violations or inequities to just get overseen and not addressed. And kids key into that. Whether it's a kid hurting or hitting another kid, whether it's a verbal infraction, a kid calls a name, whether it's a moment in class where some part of your instruction does not align with what you said earlier about how you're fair and that you care, you must stop and address that. And I call that teacher voodoo. I was always the teacher that stopped and made kids apologize when they'd done something hurtful, or when there was a practice on campus that wasn't fair. Some kids got to go to the assembly, other kids didn't. I stopped and addressed it with them, and we talked it out. And then what happens is this wonderful magic of kids going into their other classrooms and finding teachers not willing to address these moments where kids are taking advantage or inequitable things are happening. And they say to themselves, that would never fly in Mrs. Mieliwocki's class. Did you see that? That teacher just let that go. Like, that's not right. And they realize some truth about you and your classroom space, that you will honor these priorities. You will come back and gather around these inequities. You will address them. You will face them. So check in with your kids. Tell them who you are, connect with them daily, and every time there is a moment where you can help them see what you're about and believe it, then that builds connection, safety, and trust. So you have a lot of communicating to do. What will kids feel? They will feel warmth. They will feel care. They will feel trust. They will ask questions, and they will realize yours is a landscape that is safe to pursue these questions and these struggles. Sheena, I think you have number 2.
Yes. Number 2 is talk. And you have to be willing to provide opportunities for students to talk with you as well as each other. And the most important part is being open to some of those tough conversations that Rebecca just mentioned, rather they're with your students or your colleagues. It goes a long way in maintaining your equity mindset. Talking sounds simple, but often talking about those tough subjects is difficult. I want to give you an example. A friend of mine, Troy, worked in our district, which is largely minority, for 10 years. Before leaving to go to another district that was almost the exact opposite. Where he was, 93% of the students were minority. Where he is now, 99% of the students are non-minority. When he walked in, right away he realized he was going to need to have some tough conversations. He was the first African American male many of his students had ever seen in the flesh. He is young, dark-skinned, with earrings in both ears. He decided that the first thing he needed to do was have a conversation. And he said to his students, he says, I would like you to ask me whatever it is you would like to know. He opened that door and they went through it. They asked him everything from how many baby mamas he had to was he raised by a single parent? Had he ever been to prison? Was he part of a gang? And the list went on and on and on. That's a difficult conversation to have, especially for Troy because he was so far removed from any of the stereotypes they had ever that they were bringing up, and that was all they knew. But by having that conversation, he was able to open the door and allow students to learn about his culture and his race, and it actually removed the elephant from the classroom. From the student's perspective, that meant that he was someone that they could now trust. And if he could handle that tough conversation, would be able to bring any other conversations they wanted to him. So it opened the door in that classroom for a teacher and the students. It also opened the door to make that educational experience for all of them so much easier to handle. He is now one of the most sought teachers in that school system when it comes to teenagers needing assistance. Diversity, inclusion, equality, and equity are words that must be focused on when we do this work. Knowing that you have a shared understanding of those words will be so important. Antoinette Carroll describes it this way: diversity is inviting people to the party, while inclusion is inviting them to dance while they're at the party. Mm-hmm. Equality, she adds, is ensuring everyone has equal access, while equity is ensuring equal opportunities and outcomes for all people. Troy didn't just talk at the students. He didn't just simply tell his story. He invited them into the conversation to ask questions and participate in discovering his story. Being willing to provide opportunities for students to talk with you and each other, as well as being open to those tough conversations, will go a long way in maintaining your equity mindset. And I find that offering those opportunities in my classroom does the same. The students feel more welcome. They feel like they have a right to ask questions, and it also helps them to develop and find their own voices. Talk to your students. Don't assume that they know you. They don't know you unless you allow them that opportunity to ask, how many siblings did you have? What is it you enjoyed about school? Why do you think it's important? They will come up with questions that you might not anticipate, but it will open the door for dialogue. And dialogue is so important in moving equity forward. And I think, Rebecca, I'm turning it back over to you.
Bring it back over to me. All right, so simple practice number 3 is about affirming your students. So Sheena talks about talking to and with your students about who they are and how they come to class is so important. The next step into that conversation is about affirmations, and not necessarily just, the warm fuzziness of being with kids and liking them. It's that, sure, it is absolutely that. That's square one. But it's affirming their lived realities is what we mean. We say, don't shy away from what's really happening in the communities where you teach, or in the country, or in the world. Do not shy away from that. We are kept so busy, this little treadmill that teachers are on, where we're all exhausted and shredded because it's such a highly human business of teaching. But we're so busy with the expectations of our content or of our department or of our school site that it means there's a tension between getting my job done and addressing inequities in the system. And I wonder, now that I'm more experienced in this realm, if that's not intentional. Keeping us too busy to address the lived realities of our students is very convenient, isn't it? So it means that we need to slow down and stop and figure out how we can bring conversations around the lived realities back into our spaces. So this summer, I was so deeply moved by Clint Smith's book, How the Word is Passed. And there was a sentence that I'm going to read to you that just stopped me in my tracks. He's watching a summer camp of African-American kids coming together to learn about American history. And he said, I felt in that moment so envious of them. Had I known when I was younger what they were sharing, I would have been liberated from the social emotional paralysis that for so long I could not name, a paralysis that had arisen from never knowing enough of my own history to effectively identify the lies that were told to me and others. He said, we fear young people will be overwhelmed and shut down if they're to learn this. But there is such enormous value in providing young people with the language, the history, the framework to identify why their society looks the way it does. Understanding this is done not by accident, but by design. This did not strip me of my agency. It gave my agency back to me. I watched these young people share in this history, in this empowerment, and I dreamed of what it might mean if we extended these lessons to every child. Educate yourself about your students. Find out what matters to them and what is a struggle and a challenge for them and the communities that you live in. When you know that, bring that reality into your classroom space. As challenging or hard or stressful or upsetting as it might be, please bring it in. Open the conversation around these issues. And then what I want you to do is remember this. Teach them that challenges offer them choices, and choices offer them opportunities to act. Challenges, choices, and action. Move them into a space where you can take whatever content you teach, if it's language arts or math or science or social studies or music or band or language, world languages, anything at all. Help them understand how what you're teaching is an avenue for liberation through action. And it's hard sometimes. I teach English. It's a lot more easy for me to do than for maybe somebody teaching German or, teaching chemistry. But if there is a way, then you must. So what is the teacher action? All of us have to sort of put our objectives on the board, or we always have to say, students will be able to. And one of the ways I've figured out how best to do this is to use the what, why, how sort of strategy. So on my whiteboard every day, I write, what are we learning today? The next question is, why am I learning this? And I had better have a really good answer right there, because that's the question kids come to school with every single day. Why am I here? Why am I learning this? Whatever will I do with this? So I want you to say, what are we doing in class today? Why are we doing this? Please connect that why to their lived realities. Please connect that why to whatever it is that will help liberate them from those challenges. If it's a communication tool, if it's a computation skill, if it's something in history that they need to know so that they cannot repeat it again, put that in the why. And then the final word is how. How will we know I'm successful at this important thing I have to learn today? What, why, how? When kids know this, they feel like they can access success better in your class and more quickly, and that there's a lot of clarity around what are we doing in this class. And really think about Clint Smith and his quote that when my teachers addressed this, because his teachers didn't, when teachers address this, it doesn't strip me of agency, it gives it back to me. It helps me understand there is a way forward and a way beyond the systems I live in that are about oppression and are about seeing me not succeed. If we do anything in our classrooms, it's help kids figure out how to win against a system that is not set up for them to win. And we can do that. We are, as Secretary Cardona says, we are merchants of hope. We're dealers. And even Brian Stevenson said that in Leanne Erickson's workshop. She said, give and receive hope to kids. So that comes by affirming their realities, teaching with it and through it, and giving them skills they need to go beyond it. That is the third daily practice. Sheena, you're up.
Look. It's so important that we look at the students that we're working with each day in more than one way. What do you see when you look at me? Do you see me for who I am or who you thought I might be? Is it my walk, my talk, or my color at birth that you've been trained to spot as a character flaw first? Just what is it that you see when you look at me? Do you see me for who I am or who you think I might be? It is so important that we look at our students each day, their situations that they're surrounded in, as well as the barriers that may be stopping them from learning. So I make a point of looking at my students daily, and I do something called snapshots. A snapshot is when I just take pictures with my phone, and the kids are all used to the practice now. They don't go anywhere outside of the room, the pictures themselves. But in order to make sure that every child feels included in some manner or another, the pictures are actually what I use to create the poster for my classroom, the posters. And so the kids automatically, immediately are able to see all kinds of students, people who look like them or are them. Students are also able to, when parents come in, we take pictures of them as well, and interacting with their children. And then the students help to come up with the actual titles for those pictures, and they too become posters that go up at some point in the classroom. So while we're looking at our students to make sure that we're including them, that's a simple something that you can do that will make a change, and it also changes the mindset for your equity mindset as far as how you are creating inclusive opportunities for your students. So one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about inclusion is because of my own educational experience. When I started off as a kindergartner, I was only 4 years old, and I was put in a classroom where a teacher thought that that was the worst violation you could ever have in a school system, was to allow a child to start school at 4 years old. And I was the last one in the class to turn 5. She made a point at every opportunity of letting me know that not only would I be a failure, but I would cause her to be one as well. So I developed the idea that if I was invisible, if I could be as invisible as possible, then I did not have to worry about her picking at me, and I could make it through my educational experience that way. That went on until I was in 5th grade, where a teacher decided that every student should be noticed, every student should be encouraged, and every student had a reason to be there. That teacher changed my life, and that's why it's so important to me today that every student is included. So in addition to doing that thing called snapshots, which is where every child is included in a picture or something that hangs in the classroom, there are other small activities you can do. Right now, if you were to walk into my high school setting, you would find a yellow brick road that leads to my classroom. And within that yellow brick road, there's a brick that represents every student that I have. That's something that takes 2 minutes. You print the bricks, and every student does whatever they want with it, whether it's just write their name, draw a picture, whatever it may be, but they are all included. On a larger level, if I wanted to do something on the high school level that was outside of school time, I look for those students. When I take the pictures, you can see the ones who aren't really as engaged, which gives me a further insight. And then I address those students individually, and I create a club made of just those students called the CIA, which makes them undercover agents. And then we move forward by doing events and things in the school where their identities are not known, but they become part of a larger community. And I'm going to switch back over to Rebecca before I take her time up. So make sure that you are looking at your students and getting the insight you need to move your equity mindset forward.
All right, thank you. All right, the 4th simple practice, all good teachers are great planners. So here's something cool I want you to know. There are 4 things that teachers do when those teachers believe in kids. and believe they can learn. There are 4 simple practices, and this is research-based, and I want you to write these down. The first thing they do is they have a warmer classroom climate. They are warm demanders. They balance high personal warmth and care with high expectations and support for meeting those expectations. That's the role of warm demander. If you haven't done any study or Googling around on warm demandership, I highly recommend it, because the first fun thing is you try to find where you are in the quadrant. There are 4 teacher types. There's the sophisticate, the traditionalist, the warm demander, and the sentimentalist. And when you read the descriptions of the 4 and you go, oh my gosh, I might be that, maybe I'm this one, you realize that at any given time, you might be all 4 of them, or you might be one or the other, but the one to aim for most consistently is to be a warm demander. And some people call that the whatever it takes teacher approach, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I don't want us to sacrifice our lives and health and sanity to try to help every kid, because we've all been in that space where we've given up weekends, we've given up nights, we've given up dollars, we've given up food, and we will do that. We will do that to our own destruction, right? And that feels natural and normal for us. But the warm demander says, I believe in what I teach, I believe in you, and I will let nothing stop me from making sure that you get this knowledge, because you need this for your life, and this will empower you. So that's the first stage, is to create that classroom where you're doing the things Sheena and I are talking about, and there's high levels of care and warmth being transmitted. 2, teachers who believe in kids actually deliver more content inside their day or the hour. They teach more. So you are a big believer in bell-to-bell instruction. You have your objectives clear. You have kids knowing what we're doing. You move through the instructional strategies that you've designed for the day, so that by the end of the hour, kids either say, oh my gosh, is it time to go? Or they've learned so much that you are both supremely satisfied that a lot of work got done with a lot of support built into that time. The third thing that teachers who believe in kids do when they plan for this is that they give kids opportunities to respond, to talk. There is a lot of talking to learn happening in a classroom that's equitable. So that means you're sort of planning for dialogic opportunities where kids are in conversation with you, with themselves through journal, with their partners, their peers, in quads, in triads, in Google Classroom, in Socratic Seminar. And that whenever possible, you're giving them opportunities to answer open-ended questions, to answer feeling questions, to rate how well the lesson is going, to get into partner conversation. And sometimes you want to make those as unstructured as possible. Don't offer too much scaffolding. Why? Because when kids have the freedom to sort of riff and do some conversational jazz, it goes really cool places, and you need to be there to overhear it. Hear where they're going right. Hear the new directions, the creative avenues their thinking is taking them, and hear for misconceptions, for errors in understanding, so you can stop and fix and repair. So too many times we go to classrooms where it's too one-sided, it's too one-directional. And I want you to be a builder of a class that is positively chaotic, that there is good, active, I call it butts up learning, happening in the room. And a lot of that is around conversation. So think about using dialogic structures to get kids into talk spaces. The fourth thing that teachers who believe in kids do, and they plan for this, is they give high quality feedback. There's a lot of research around the feedback that kids of color or marginalized kids get, and it's terrible. They get great job, or you did it. They get almost nothing. It's just a drip. It's just a drip for the thirsty. And if you're a teacher who runs an equitable classroom, you're giving high quality feedback that kids can use immediately to make their work better or to tighten up their learning and cognitive processes. So that means you have to know, where are my kids at? Where are we going? What don't they know yet? And how can I fill that gap with feedback that will help advance them? In an English classroom, I know what that's like. That's coaching language around writing. It's coaching language around reading and what they're understanding as they read. In a math class, it's also helpful. It's whiteboard work. Retry this problem, calculate here, look at that solution, check again. It's moving around and coaching in real time and giving that direct feedback. It is so empowering for kids to get that feedback in the moment they can most use it, instead of delayed or later on. So those are the 4 things I want you to plan for. Warm, connective climate, lots of teaching during the hour, lots of opportunities for kids to talk with you and each other, and feedback right into the gap where their skills are not yet ready to move them forward. Do those 4 things, plan for those 4 things, and your classroom will rock and roll. Sheena.
Purpose. Passion for equity is not enough, and purpose involves reflection. I thought I had it. I thought I had it all going on. My whole career, as I mentioned in the look section, I worked on so many levels to be sure that no student would feel invisible. I felt like my classroom was one of the most welcome places for students in the building, and it was on many levels. Colorful, warm, equitable in regards to materials being available for all. If there was going to be a trip, we didn't go unless every student could go. We would raise the funds. And even when I was a coach, after all, when I got to my school, it was so divided that Hispanics had to be on the color guard and African Americans were the cheerleaders. And as a coach, I knew that wasn't acceptable. So that's one of the barriers that was broken. Males not allowed to cheerlead. That's another barrier that was broken. So I really felt that I was there. I was doing it. I had this equity thing all down. What was my wake-up call? My district has a large minority population, as I said earlier. 94% of the students in my personal school are minority. And over 55% of them are Hispanic, and about 38% are African American. So if that's the case, how was it that I was spending an entire month on Black culture, music, contributions to society, etc., and maybe a day or 2 on Hispanic culture? Well, it was because that's where my comfort level was. And that's where my access to material was. No one ever questioned me on it or brought it to my attention, but it was the reality when I started to reflect that I was faced with. What made you realize equity was something that you needed to address in your classroom? Was it a student issue, an adult issue? Was it something that took place in your school or your local community? Something questionable in your curriculum? We need to reflect on what it was that made equity something that was brought to our attention and what our purpose is as of this moment. The kids in my classroom, by the way, when I surveyed them, thought that I felt the Black population was more important. The change that I needed to make, it was for all students to take more leadership in the class when it comes to celebrating culture, and the transformation has been amazing. So something simple you can do is 5 minutes. It could be once a week, once a month. During Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month, I have students that present maybe 15 out of every 20 classes. Only 5 minutes. And the students are allowed to bring what they would like us to know about their culture. This works with any and all grade levels. And some of you, if you have morning meetings, it can take place then. It can be school-wide. But it's just a few minutes given for students to bring a piece of themselves into the classroom. We've had students do everything from introducing us to dances that have historical meaning to their cultures, to having family members come in and recite the stories that are only handed down and not in print anywhere. It's not mandatory for students to present. They can also send something to me and I will present it to the class. We hold discussions that are related to those presentations. Students take the lead and they are excited to do so. This has greatly changed the climate of my classroom. If you could tackle just one thing in regards to your practice, what would it be? Sometimes our focus is so wide that starting seems insurmountable. Whatever it is, that one thing that you decide to start on, it's okay to start right where you are. You don't have to compare your journey to anyone else's because no two journeys in this process will be the same. And there is no shame in celebrating those little milestones that happen. Maybe everyone was involved in this activity. Maybe today was a day where everyone answered a question in the classroom and you were sure to call on everyone in the classroom. Everyone on this equity journey is learning while doing so because we don't yet have a society of equity to study. Even the folks who are experts in diversity, equity, and inclusion are still learning, and more importantly, unlearning. And that was said by Antoinette Carroll. Now, equity for me is acknowledging and making adjustments regarding access and opportunity so that hand in hand, fairness and justice can advance forward for all of my students. I do realize that it's never ending and it's a constantly changing journey. Offering students 5 minutes, if 5 minutes is too much, do a 2 minute. Give them that opportunity to have the leadership. This relates back to the talking. This relates to seeing your students in a different light. And it will advance your equity mindset forward. Today, for me, it really has been a pleasure speaking with you and Rebecca, working with you on this. I always walk away from every conversation that we have feeling more enlightened and more encouraged, more uplifted. At this point, I would like to make sure that we address any questions, if there are some in the chat, and also give you the opportunity, if you need clarification on anything that we've discussed, for us to have time to do that.
I have a quick note about our resource guide, which we built. Oh, shoot, I just lost y'all. You're all still here, right? Yes, okay, good. Our resource guide is up there. I don't know, Michelle, if you have access to, oh yes, here it is. Okay, good. It got stuck in my outbox yesterday at my work email, and now I'm home, of course, and don't have it, but we've managed to figure it out, and it's there. So Michelle put it in the link. Does anybody have any questions for us or advice, any wisdom you have from your daily experience? Say it out loud or put it in the chat. We need it. It's hard work. Sheena, everyone's shy.
Well, while we're waiting, there are other things, examples I can share of how some of these are used in my classroom. So for example, when I was saying that, you can find ways to include everybody, little things mean so much to people. A doll silhouette, we gave one to every student. They got to do whatever they wanted to it. If all they did was just bring it back with their name on it, that was fine. But we took a road and had it go all the way around the classroom, and everybody's doll was on it. That's another way of starting discussion, because some students decorated theirs in cultural attire, and this can be done with kindergarten, preschool, it can be done in high school. It was done with adults, believe it or not, in my church. I stole the idea and took it there. But it's a way of getting discussion going. And once you do that, everything else starts to fall into place. So that's another simple idea of a way of having everyone feel included that I've actually used in my classroom.
As the longer I'm at this, and especially the more I work with teachers in understanding how to design for learning, I'm just so cognizant of how much we need to slow down and how less really is more. And I'm so proud of us, the onslaught of programs and systems and structures and compliance and program review and data. Like, it's designed to make us maybe crazy, and it's not healthy, right, or fair for us or for the kids. And if school is to be a place where every child comes and has a learning ally in you, and a person who is there to deliver every opportunity for them to meet their potential, then we have to be much more intentional, slow, careful, thoughtful about what we do with every minute with them. And it is difficult work, but it's the best work to slow down and plan for these moments, to plan to care about what's happening in their lives, to over communicate. One of the things I was thinking about after I stopped talking about over communicate your stance, the way this bubbles up, like in your grade book, something will pop up and it'll come up around grading and inequity in grading. And if you don't stop and have the space to examine and audit the practice of how you're grading kids, you won't discover that inequity is hiding there and you're not aware to it, and kids will bring it up to you and you have to address it. Or in who gets to do what assignment, when, and how. If we don't stop and examine and recenter ourselves and where we are in our practice, then inequity continues to thrive and live in the school system. So slow down, pause, breathe, edit, audit, examine all of your practices for how equitable it is, and then bring kids toward a better place and a better space for all of you. That's my recommendation, especially now we're dealing with so much. Let's just bring the temperature down, slow the clock down, and get really careful about what we're doing with kids. That's the way.
And when you notice something, it really pained me when I found things in my practice that weren't equitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to drop into that pity party mode. Like, I'm broken. How could I, the advocate, not have seen this before now? And some of the pictures that I took literally of my classroom without students in it, because sometimes when you look around your room, you're like, this is great. I took pictures and actually took the time to look through them. And I realized that when it came to book titles, my classroom was not really equitable. But I hadn't noticed that. And what started me on the poster project was I noticed that the posters hanging in my room didn't represent my students.
Mm-hmm.
So by taking snapshots of the room itself, not just the students while they're working in it,
Mm-hmm.
was also eye-opening for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was painful to see that. But then we got to step beyond that pain and say, okay, the fact that I noticed it is a step in the right direction. And then these are little things you can do that make such a huge. We complain about parent interaction sometimes, that there isn't enough of it. I noticed that the changes that I made in my classroom increased my parental involvement. Parents were so excited to see that their kids were being valued in so many more ways, and their culture was as well. Little steps.
All right. We made it, Sheena. It's right on top of the hour, 1 minute to go. Thank you guys, everybody. It's been such a joy, Sheena, getting to know you and doing this. Let's keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. See you back at Dr. Warren's session in a few minutes.
Thank you both for a great session and the wonderful resources. Have a super day.
Thanks.
Thank you all.